The warning came without any advance notice on a cold Tuesday morning. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee in the command center of the UHS Defiance when the long-range sensors started screaming. 3 massive ships had just appeared at the edge of the Kepler system, moving fast toward the human research stations. Jake had been exploring space for 15 years, but he had never seen ships like these. They were huge, almost 5 times the size of his vessel, and they moved with a strange grace that made his skin crawl. The metal was dark red, almost black, and covered with sharp edges that looked like weapons. Strange symbols glowed along their sides in colors that hurt to look at. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. Her voice was tight with worry. "It's coming from the lead ship." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. He set down his coffee cup and straightened his uniform. First contact with an alien race was supposed to be a moment of celebration, but something felt very wrong about this situation. The screen flickered, and then filled with the image of something that made Jake's blood run cold. The alien was tall and thin with pale gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Its eyes were completely black, like looking into deep space, and when it smiled, Jake could see rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Primitive humans," the alien said in perfect English, though its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I am Commander Zekmar of the Zilarian Empire. You will listen carefully, because I will say this only once." Jake opened his mouth to respond, but the alien held up one long clawed hand for silence. "Your species has been evaluated and found useful for labor purposes. You will surrender 50% of your population immediately for transport to our work facilities. You will also provide tribute in the form of raw materials and energy sources. Compliance is not optional." "Now wait just a minute," Jake started to say, but the alien cut him off again. "Your research stations in this system will serve as an example of what happens to those who do not listen." Commander Zekmar's black eyes seemed to stare directly through the screen. "You have exactly one of your solar cycles to deliver the required slaves and tribute to Empress Vexithera. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your species." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. For a moment, nobody in the command center moved or spoke. Then Lieutenant Rodriguez broke the silence. "Sir, the alien ships are moving toward Research Station Alpha." Jake watched in horror as the 3 red ships approached the small research facility. Station Alpha housed 43 scientists and their families, including children. "Get me a communication channel to the station," he ordered. "Emergency frequency. Channel open, sir. Alpha Station, this is Captain Morrison. You need to evacuate immediately. 3 hostile alien vessels are approaching your position." Dr. Helen Baker's voice came through the speakers, filled with confusion. "Captain, what are you talking about? Our sensors show 3 ships, but they're not responding to our hail. They're not friendly, Helen. Get everyone to the escape pods right now." Jake could hear alarms going off in the background of the transmission. "We're moving people as fast as we can, Jake, but the children in the school section..." The transmission cut off in a burst of static. On the main screen, Jake watched the 3 alien ships position themselves around Research Station Alpha. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then beams of red light shot out from the alien vessels. Research Station Alpha simply vanished. One moment it was there, a small collection of connected modules spinning slowly in space. The next moment, there was nothing but expanding gases and debris. 43 people, including 12 children, were gone in less than 5 seconds. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Rodriguez. Jake felt sick to his stomach, but he forced himself to stay calm. "What about Research Station Beta?" "They're moving toward it now, sir." Station Beta was larger, with over 100 people. Jake tried to contact them, but the result was the same. The alien ships surrounded the station and destroyed it without any warning or chance for surrender. 112 more humans died in those few terrible seconds. The alien ships then turned and headed back toward the edge of the system. Within an hour, they had vanished into hyperspace, leaving Jake and his crew alone with the floating wreckage of 2 research stations. Jake sent an emergency message to Earth Command immediately. The news would take 6 hours to reach Earth, and the response would take another 6 hours to come back. But he knew what the response would be. Earth had never faced anything like this before. 2 days later, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the war room deep beneath Earth Command headquarters. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, and she had spent 30 years building Earth's space fleet. Now she stared at the holographic display showing the locations of every human ship in known space. "Tell me the numbers again," she said to Colonel Rick Hayes, her chief of staff. "We have exactly 2,147 ships of all types," Rick said. His voice was steady, but she could see the worry in his eyes. "That includes cargo haulers, mining vessels, passenger transports, and research ships. Only 218 of them were built for military purposes." "And what do we know about the enemy?" "Intelligence estimates the Zalarian Empire has over 50,000 warships. Each one is larger and more heavily armed than our best military vessel. They control 3 star systems that we know of, possibly more." Lisa walked around the holographic display, studying the scattered points of light that represented humanity's entire space fleet. Most of the ships were civilian vessels, never meant for combat. The mining ships were tough but slow. The cargo haulers were fast but lightly built. The passenger ships were completely defenseless. "What about the deadline?" she asked. 28 days remaining," Rick replied. "They want half our population delivered as slaves, plus massive amounts of raw materials and energy sources. If we comply, they might let the other half of humanity live as a subject species." Lisa stopped walking and looked at Rick. "And if we refuse?" "Complete extinction. Based on what they did to the research stations, they have the ability to carry out that threat." The 2 military officers stood in silence for several minutes, both thinking about the impossible choice facing humanity. Lisa had run computer simulations of a war with the Zalarian Empire. Every single simulation ended the same way: total human defeat within weeks. But something else was happening across human space. Reports were coming in from every colony and station. Civilian ship captains were volunteering for military service. Mining crews were asking for weapons to mount on their ships. Even passenger transport captains were offering to help. Captain Ben Taylor sent a message that would become famous throughout human space. "We didn't fight our way off Earth just to become slaves to some alien empire. Count me and my crew in for whatever you need." Similar messages were arriving every hour. Humanity might not have a powerful military, but they had something else: the absolute refusal to give up without a fight. The message from Admiral Lisa Carter went out to every human ship, station, and colony in space. It was simple and direct. "All civilian vessels report to your nearest military depot for emergency conversion. This is not a drill. Humanity needs every ship we can get." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, cargo ships were changing course toward military stations. Mining vessels abandoned their work sites and headed for the nearest depot. Even luxury passenger liners volunteered to be converted into warships. Captain Amy Rodriguez had been hauling medical supplies between colonies for 8 years. Her ship, the UHS Pioneer, was not built for war. It was designed to carry delicate cargo safely through space. But when she received the Admiral's message, she didn't hesitate for even a second. "Set course for Mars Military Depot," she told her crew. "Maximum speed." "Captain," said her engineer, Pete Johnson, "are you sure about this? We're not soldiers." Amy looked at him with steady eyes. "Those aliens killed 200 people without even trying to talk first. They want to make slaves out of half the human race. I don't know about you, Pete, but I'd rather die fighting than live on my knees." All across human space, similar conversations were happening. At the asteroid mining station Ceres, Chief Engineer Tom Wilson was working 18-hour days to convert civilian ships into weapons of war. The mining station had become a massive factory, with workers welding armor plates onto cargo ships and mounting weapons wherever they could fit them. This hauler wasn't meant to carry missile launchers, Wilson told his assistant, Maria Santos, as they worked on a converted freight ship. "It wasn't meant to fight aliens either," Maria replied. adjusting the targeting system they had just installed. But here we are. The conversion process was rough and improvised. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroids were modified to cut through enemy ships. Industrial welders became makeshift weapons. Cargo holds were filled with explosives instead of trade goods. Every ship that came through the depot left looking like a patchwork warrior. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Luna Shipyard was working around the clock to build new vessels. The shipyard had never built military ships before. Their specialty was research vessels and small cargo haulers, but Chief Designer Carol Wright and her team were learning fast. "We don't have time to build proper warships," Carol explained to her engineering staff. "So we're going to build something else, something these aliens won't expect." What they built looked nothing like traditional warships. The Luna Shipyard vessels were small, fast, and covered with armor plating salvaged from mining equipment. They carried no long-range weapons, but they were built for one purpose: ramming enemy ships at high speed. "If we can't outgun them, we'll ram them," Carol said. "These ships are basically guided missiles with human crews." At the same time, scientists across human space were working to understand the enemy. Dr. Kevin Clark at the Mars Research Institute had been studying the wreckage from the destroyed research stations. What he found gave humanity its first real hope. "The alien ships are powerful, but they have weaknesses," he reported to Admiral Carter. "Their hulls are designed for combat in atmosphere, not the vacuum of space. They're strong, but they're not as tough as our mining ships." Dr. Clark's analysis showed something else important. The Zalarian ships relied heavily on energy shields for protection, but human ships were built differently. Mining vessels had to survive impacts from asteroids and space debris. They were built to take damage and keep working. "Our ships are tougher than they look," Dr. Clark concluded. "If we can get close enough, we might be able to hurt them." This information spread quickly through the growing human fleet. Ship captains who had felt hopeless began to see possibilities. If alien ships weren't invincible, maybe humanity had a chance after all. Captain Ben Taylor was at Jupiter Station when he heard Dr. Clark's report. His cargo ship, the UHS Freedom, was being fitted with armor and weapons by a team of engineers. The ship looked ridiculous when they finished, like a flying junkyard, but it was still his ship. "What do you think, Captain?" asked the lead engineer, showing Ben the modifications. "We've mounted mining charges all through the cargo hold. If you ram an enemy ship, the explosion should take out anything within 1,000 meters. Ben nodded slowly. "So it's a suicide mission?" "Not necessarily. We've installed an escape pod with emergency thrusters. You might be able to get clear before the explosion." "Might be," Ben repeated. He looked at his ship, now bristling with improvised weapons and armor. "Well, I always said I wanted to go out with a bang." As the deadline approached, more information about the enemy began to arrive. Captain Jake Morrison had been conducting reconnaissance missions near the edge of human space. His ship, the UHS Defiance, was fast and quiet, perfect for spying on alien movements. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Zalarian Empire was gathering a massive fleet just outside human territory. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, all waiting for the deadline to expire. They weren't taking any chances with humanity's response. But Jake also noticed something else. The alien ships moved in tight formations, like they were used to fighting other fleets in open space battles. They seemed confused by the scattered nature of human space, with colonies and stations spread across dozens of star systems. "They're expecting us to meet them in one big battle," Jake reported to Admiral Carter. "They don't understand how spread out we are." This gave Admiral Carter an idea. Instead of gathering all human ships in one place, she would keep them scattered. The aliens would have to divide their forces to attack multiple targets, reducing their advantage in numbers. "We're not going to fight their kind of war," she told her staff. "We're going to fight our kind of war." Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Empress Vexithara was growing impatient. She sat on her crystal throne on the world of Zeltaroth, surrounded by advisors who told her what she wanted to hear. "The humans are silent, Your Majesty," reported General Krathvor. "Our spies detect movement in their space, but nothing organized. They appear to be panicking." The Empress smiled, showing her sharp teeth. She was tall and elegant, with pale skin and eyes like black diamonds. She wore robes made from the silk of conquered worlds and a crown forged from metals stripped from dead planets. "Let them panic," she said. "When the deadline passes, I will personally lead the fleet that destroys their homeworld. Their screams will be heard across the galaxy." But the Empress's spies were not telling her everything. They saw human ships moving, but they didn't understand what they were seeing. To alien eyes, the converted cargo ships and mining vessels looked like refugees fleeing in panic. They couldn't imagine that these crude, patched-together ships were actually preparing for war. With only days left before the deadline, humanity's improvised fleet began to gather at secret rendezvous points throughout human space. Over 3,000 ships of every size and type, crewed by people who had never been soldiers but refused to be slaves. They didn't look like much compared to the sleek alien warships, but they carried something the aliens didn't understand: the human refusal to give up no matter how hopeless things looked. The deadline expired at exactly midnight, Earth time. Across human space, 3,000 ships waited in the darkness between stars. They were spread across dozens of locations, hidden in asteroid fields and behind planets where alien sensors couldn't find them easily. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of her command ship, the UHS Liberty. Through the view screen, she could see other human vessels floating nearby. Cargo ships with welded armor plating, mining vessels bristling with improvised weapons, passenger liners converted into troop transports. None of them looked like proper warships, but they were all humanity had. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Danny Lee, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet." "Put it through," Lisa ordered. The view screen filled with the image of Empress Vexis Thera herself. She was even more terrifying than her subordinates, with skin like polished marble and eyes that seemed to burn with cold fire. Her voice was smooth and deadly. "Pathetic humans," the Empress said. "Your time has expired. You have chosen extinction over service. I will personally oversee the destruction of your homeworld and the elimination of your entire species. Your deaths will serve as a lesson to other primitive races who dare to defy the Zalarian Empire." Lisa stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. "This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the Human Defense Fleet. We have a message for you too, Your Majesty. The message is this: go to hell." The Empress's perfect features twisted with rage. "You will regret those words when I feed your children to my pets. All ships advance. Show these insects what real power looks like." The transmission ended, leaving the human fleet in tense silence. Then reports began flowing in from scouts, positioned throughout the system. "Admiral alien fleet entering the Kepler system," reported Captain Jake Morrison from his reconnaissance ship. "I count, dear God, there are thousands of them." Lisa felt her heart sink. The intelligence reports had been accurate. The Zalarian fleet was massive, with sleek red and black ships that moved through space like deadly sharks. There were huge battleships armed with enough firepower to destroy planets, fast cruisers that could outrun anything in the human fleet, swarms of smaller fighters that outnumbered human ships 10 to 1. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter," Lisa broadcast to the human fleet. "The enemy has arrived. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human child who deserves to grow up free." The alien fleet moved with perfect coordination, like a school of fish swimming through space. They approached the inner system in a tight formation, confident in their overwhelming superiority. To them, the scattered human resistance was nothing more than an annoyance to be swept aside. Captain Amy Rodriguez gripped the controls of her converted cargo ship, the UHS Pioneer. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. To her crew, "This is it, people. We knew this day would come when we signed up." She looked around at the faces of her crew members. Pete Johnson, her engineer, gave her a thumbs up. Maria Santos, now serving as weapons officer, nodded grimly. "Let's show these aliens what happens when they threaten our families." The first contact came near the outer planets. A squadron of human mining ships, led by Captain Ben Taylor in the UHS Freedom, intercepted a group of alien scouts. The aliens expected easy targets, but they got a nasty surprise. All ships, ramming speed, Ben ordered over the communications channel. "Remember, we only get one shot at this." The human ships accelerated toward the alien scouts using their superior engines to build up devastating velocity. The aliens, confused by this suicidal tactic, hesitated for just a moment. That moment was all the humans needed. Ben's ship, loaded with mining explosives, smashed into the lead alien scout at tremendous speed. The explosion lit up space for thousands of kilometers, destroying not only the scout but two other alien ships caught in the blast. Across the battle zone, other human ships followed Ben's example, turning themselves into guided missiles. Within minutes, an entire alien squadron was destroyed. The cost was heavy. 20 human ships and their crews were gone. But they had proven something important. The aliens could be hurt. News of the first victory spread through the human fleet like wildfire. If 20 mining ships could destroy an alien squadron, maybe they had a real chance. But the aliens were learning too. Empress Vexithara watched the destruction of her scouts with growing anger. She had expected the humans to flee or surrender when faced with her fleet's power. Instead, they were fighting back with a viciousness that surprised her. "All ships maintain distance," she ordered. "Use long-range weapons only. Do not let the humans get close enough for their ramming attacks." The main battle began an hour later. The alien fleet approached Earth's outer defenses in a massive formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. Their weapons reached out like fingers of death, destroying human ships from distances where the humans couldn't fight back effectively. Captain Rodriguez watched her tactical display with growing desperation. The aliens were staying far away, picking off human ships one by one with their superior weapons. The human plan of ramming attacks wouldn't work if they couldn't get close enough. "We need a new strategy," she reported to Admiral Carter. "They're not letting us get close." Lisa studied the battle reports flowing in from across the system. Human losses were mounting, and they hadn't managed to destroy a single major alien ship. The battle was turning into exactly the kind of long-range slugging match that favored the aliens. Then Dr. Kevin Clark's voice came over the emergency channel. He was broadcasting from a research station hidden behind Jupiter's largest moon. "All ships, this is Dr. Clark. I've been analyzing the alien weapons. They're using focused energy beams, but the beams lose power over distance. If you can get within 5,000 kilometers, their advantage disappears." "How do we get that close?" asked Captain Rodriguez. "They're staying well out of range." "Use the asteroid fields," Dr. Clark replied. "Hide among the rocks, then attack when they pass by. Their sensors can't track you effectively in all that debris." It was a desperate plan, but it was the only chance they had. Admiral Carter immediately began repositioning human ships throughout the system's asteroid belts. Mining crews who knew every rock and hiding place in their sectors became the guides for improvised attack squadrons. Captain Jake Morrison led the first ambush attack from the asteroid belt near Mars. His ship and 12 others waited among the floating rocks as a formation of alien cruisers passed nearby. When the aliens were at their closest approach, Jake gave the attack order. The human ships burst out of the asteroid field like angry wasps, accelerating to ramming speed before the aliens could react. This time, the surprise was complete. Jake's ship punched through the shields of an alien cruiser and detonated inside its hull. The cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash, taking 2 nearby alien ships with it. Similar ambush attacks began happening throughout the system. Human ships would hide among asteroids, space debris, or behind planets, then strike when alien formations passed within range. Each attack cost human lives, but each attack also proved that the mighty Zalarian Empire could bleed. Empress Vexithara stood on her flagship's bridge, watching in disbelief as her fleet took losses from ships she had dismissed as primitive junk. Her perfect composure was beginning to crack. "How are these insects destroying my ships?" she demanded of her advisors. "They fight without honor, Your Majesty," replied General Krathvor. "They hide like cowards and attack with suicide runs." "Then, we will burn them out of every hiding place," the Empress snarled. "Destroy every asteroid, every planet, every piece of debris in this system. Leave them nowhere to hide." The battle had been raging for 16 hours. The space around Earth was filled with the wreckage of both human and alien ships. Debris floated in clouds that sparkled in the light of distant stars. But the humans were still fighting, still refusing to surrender. Empress Vexithara paced the bridge of her massive flagship like a caged animal. Her perfect composure was completely gone now. Her robes were torn, her crown sat crooked on her head, and her black eyes burned with pure rage. "Status report," she demanded from her terrified bridge crew. "We have lost 437 ships, Your Majesty," reported General Krathvor, his voice shaking. "The humans have lost over 2,000, but they continue to fight." Though our Empress slammed her fist on the command console so hard that it cracked. 2,000 of their ships destroyed and they still fight? What is wrong with these creatures? What she didn't understand was that every human ship lost had taken alien vessels with it. Captain Ben Taylor's sacrifice had destroyed 3 alien scouts. Captain Jake Morrison's ambush had eliminated an entire cruiser squadron. Across the battle zone, human crews were turning their ships into weapons, trading their lives for devastating strikes against the enemy. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UHS Liberty, her uniform torn and her face streaked with soot from a nearby explosion. Her command ship had taken heavy damage, but it was still fighting. Around her, the surviving human fleet was regrouping for one final assault. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Danny Lee, "we're down to 800 operational ships." Lisa nodded grimly. 800 ships out of 3,000. The losses were terrible, but they had accomplished something no one thought possible. The mighty Zalarian fleet was badly damaged, with hundreds of their ships destroyed or disabled. "What's the status of the alien flagship?" she asked. "Still operational, ma'am. The Empress is aboard that ship, directing their remaining forces." Lisa studied the tactical display. The alien flagship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of her own ship. It was protected by layers of shields and armor that had shrugged off every human attack so far, but it was also isolated now, separated from the rest of the alien fleet by the chaotic nature of the battle. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter," she broadcast to the surviving human vessels. "We have one chance to end this. The alien flagship is alone. If we can destroy it and kill their Empress, the rest of their fleet might retreat." Captain Amy Rodriguez received the message aboard her heavily damaged ship, the UHS Pioneer. Half. Her crew was dead. Her engines were barely working and her weapons were almost out of ammunition. But she was still alive, and she was still fighting. "You heard the Admiral," she told her remaining crew members. "One more mission. Are you with me?" Pete Johnson, her engineer, managed a weak smile despite the bandage covering half his face. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Captain." Across the battle zone, the surviving human ships began moving toward the alien flagship. They came from all directions, using the wreckage and debris as cover. Mining ships with their industrial lasers, cargo haulers loaded with explosives, passenger liners converted into improvised warships, all that remained of humanity's desperate defense. The Empress saw them coming and laughed. "Look at them, General. A few hundred broken ships thinking they can challenge me personally. I will destroy them myself." She took direct control of her flagship's weapons, targeting the approaching human vessels with deadly precision. Her ship's massive guns reached out across space, destroying human ships one by one. But for every ship she killed, 2 more kept coming. The first human ship to reach the flagship was a converted mining vessel called the UHS Prospector. Captain Carl Brown had been mining asteroids for 20 years before the war started. His ship was small and ugly, but it was tough as nails. "This is for the research stations," he said over the radio, then rammed his ship directly into the flagship's shield generators. The explosion was massive, but the flagship's shields held. However, the impact created a weak spot that other human ships could exploit. Captain Rodriguez saw her chance and accelerated toward the damaged section. "All power to engines," she ordered. "We're going through their shields." The UHS Pioneer hit the weakened shields at full speed, punching through them like a bullet through paper. The ship's hull was torn apart by the impact, but the cargo hold full of mining explosives reached the flagship's armor before detonating. The explosion ripped a huge hole in the alien ship's side. Atmosphere rushed out into space, carrying debris, and alien crew members with it. For the first time in the battle, the Empress's flagship was truly damaged. More human ships followed, each one targeting the breach in the flagship's defenses. The alien ship's automated systems tried to seal the holes, but new explosions kept tearing them open. Slowly, inevitably, the mighty flagship began to die. Admiral Carter saw her opportunity. Her own ship, the UHS Liberty, was the largest vessel in the human fleet. It had been built as a command ship with heavy armor and powerful engines. If she could ram the flagship's bridge section, she might be able to kill the Empress and end the war. "All crew to escape pods," she ordered. "I'm taking the ship in alone." "Admiral, you don't have to do this," protested Danny Lee. "Yes, I do," Lisa replied. "Get to the pods, son. That's an order." She waited until her crew had evacuated, then locked the controls and set course for the alien flagship. The Liberty accelerated toward its target, its engines pushed beyond their safety limits. Alien weapons fire reached out to stop her, but the ship's heavy armor absorbed the hits. The Empress saw the human command ship approaching and felt something she had never experienced before. Fear. This primitive species was actually going to kill her. Her, the ruler of 3 star systems, destroyer of a dozen worlds. "All ships protect the flagship," she screamed into her communication system. "Stop that ship at any cost." But it was too late. The remaining alien vessels were too far away, and the human ship was moving too fast. Admiral Carter's ship slammed into the flagship's bridge section at tremendous speed. The impact was like a small star exploding. The bridge of the alien flagship was completely destroyed, along with most of the ship's command section. The Empress, along with her senior officers, died instantly in the blast. With their leader dead, the Zalarian fleet began to fall apart. Some ships tried to continue fighting, but many others started retreating toward the edge of the system. Without the Empress's iron will holding them together, the alien commanders began arguing among themselves. Captain Rodriguez, who had survived the destruction of her ship in an escape pod, watched the alien fleet retreat. Around her, other human survivors floated in the debris field, also watching their enemies flee. "This is General Krathvor to all human vessels," came a transmission from the retreating aliens. "The Empress is dead. We withdraw from your space. This war is over." The surviving human ships began broadcasting to each other, voices filled with exhaustion and disbelief. They had done the impossible. 3,000 civilian ships, converted into improvised warships, had defeated the mighty Zalarian Empire. The cost had been terrible. Over 2,000 human ships destroyed and countless brave men and women dead. But humanity was still free. The children of Earth would grow up as free citizens, not as slaves to an alien empire. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of humanity's first deep space colony, built on a world that had once belonged to the Zalarian Empire. Through the transparent walls, he could see human children playing in alien soil, their laughter carrying through the recycled air. Admiral Carter would have liked to see this, he said to Captain Rodriguez, who stood beside him. "She did see it," Amy replied. "Every time one of us refused to give up, every time we chose to fight instead of surrender, she was there with us." The war had changed humanity. They were no longer just explorers and traders scattered across space. They were a people who had proven that courage and determination could overcome any odds, and the galaxy would never forget the day when 3,000 human ships sent an alien Empress into fury and emerged victorious against impossible odds.